I think the question that comes to mind is like culture. How does culture play a role in defining the business? Because every office is different. You can have a 10-floor office with 10 different businesses, brands. Each floor is different because their culture is different. The way they approach customers is different. The way they take care of the employees is different. Yeah, how would you define culture?
I'm so glad you asked that question because I just had a discussion with my team yesterday and I said, I'm a culture person first. If I know my team has the skill set, I know they can do the work. I know I could win the lottery bus or a different bus, hit by a different bus, and that they would be able to I know they can do the work. Can they fit into the corporate culture that we've created? The corporate culture, and I know when I used to be interview for positions like that I was interested in, I would always ask that question to define what corporate culture was. And then I would say, what would your staff and direct reports say is your corporate culture? I'm a huge culture person. The values that we created as a team is about that when we rebranded are again, a lot of people say this, but I'm driven by them. And I make sure that they are always front and center and ask questions about that every meeting we have. And not just a formality. I don't do it as a slide and say, how are we living? I'm like, we talk about it. I've always been a person too that says if the culture is embraced and everybody is agreeing to it and living it out, corporate culture isn't something that can be manufactured. It kind of evolves over time under visionary leadership that's by example. But like our culture, for example, before I bought the business, there was a disconnect between the leadership and the frontline staff. And I did some work with them and realized there was two cultures. Like you said, there was the culture that they created that was very healthy, and then there was the not so healthy culture. So we did a lot of work with that when I first came on, is like, what has made this culture so positive over the last 10 years that you guys have worked together, and why has it been negative? And the first 2 months, they couldn't define it because they were nervous about telling me that, until I created an environment where authenticity, vulnerability, almost very Brené Brownish in some ways, where it's okay, right? And so we define that, and now we know when we're living it and when we're not living it. And if you're going to be spending, well, as entrepreneurs, that's much more than 8 hours, but if you're spending 6 to 8 hours at a job and you loathe every minute of it, and you're worried about whether you're going to be coming home feeling like you have been mistreated, or it just doesn't even align with who you are, going back to the existential questions, why bother?
In a world filled with possibilities, one truth stands out. Everyone is a pathfinder in their own journey. Whether it's charting new territories in leadership, embracing the future with technology, or nurturing humanity, pathfinders are everywhere. Pathfinders, a platform built for everyone. We believe in the power of connection, the spark of curiosity, and the potential to inspire. Here we bring people together, not just as professionals, but as dreamers, thinkers, and change makers. Through engaging podcasts, thought-provoking digital conferences, and dynamic audio roundtables, and many more, we create spaces for meaningful conversations. We celebrate those who seek to understand, innovate, and lead. People like you. Pathfinders inspires. Pathfinders embraces technology. And above all, Pathfinders spreads a vision where leadership, innovation, and humanity converge to shape a better and brighter future. We are here to connect, to build bridges that transcend barriers, to share stories that matter, and to foster a community driven by passion and purpose. Be a part of this journey. Be a Pathfinder. Welcome to Pathfinders. Hey everyone, welcome to Pathfinders to another exciting episode. Today we have our friend Rudy Zacharias. Did I say it right?
Zacharias.
Zacharias. Rudy Zacharias. So, Rudy, please bear with me. I have to introduce you properly. Please bear with me. Rudy Zacharias is a visionary leader with more than 25 years of interdisciplinary experience shaping brands, strategies, and partnerships that drive meaningful impact. His career spans a full breadth of strategic planning, branding, marketing, corporate communications, choose management, organizational change, public participation, municipal operations, and government and stakeholder relations. He's had rich career experience in the past, ranging from being a communications officer and senior director at both government and corporate entities. He also managed the marketing and communications division with the Alberta Motor Transport Association. Now, as the president and CEO of About That, Rudy sets a game plan, steers organizational strategy, and champions a future focused vision that keeps clients at the center of every decision. Known for his innovative mindset and collaborative approach, he's committed to building the partnerships that move organizations and the people behind them forward. Rudy, welcome to Pathfinders podcast. Welcome, my friend.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Rudy, I can't wait to get deep dive with you. Like, if we can, before even getting to About That, how was your journey like? Where did it all start? How was young Rudy like? What was a young child Rudy like? Where did it all start, man?
Is this the therapist I said? Just kidding.
We go do a life journey and then connect back to the current. Yeah.
That's totally fine. Yeah. So I am a Manitoba boy, first and foremost. I always say that you can take the man out of Manitoba, but never the Manitoba out of the boy. Or out of the man. So I was born and raised in southern Manitoba, about an hour and 15 minutes south of Winnipeg. And so that's where my childhood was, and had a really great childhood and started learning about creativity at a very young age. Both my parents were very creative individuals and really believed in tapping into that childhood curiosity and allowing that to come out. So I grew up in an era where screens weren't really a factor. I guess maybe I'm dating myself here a little bit, but our screen was a old black and white TV that you had to use the pliers to change the channel on. So we didn't sit in front of the TV that much, or there was no YouTube back then. So we had to tap into our own creative minds to enjoy experiences and come up with things. So I think that's great for kids to tap into their own creativity and learn about how life works and how they navigate around them. So that was great. And actually my path kind of went in the strange, I always say that I don't do things the normal way, and I don't think I ever have. So once I graduated from high school, I actually went into the world of social work for a while, and I was in social work for quite a bit. In my 30s, I was still in Manitoba at the time, and in my 30s, I decided that I was feeling a bit burnt out. I was feeling I'd gone as far as I could go in that realm. I was frustrated with some of the things that I was seeing in the world of helping the people who needed the most support with some bureaucracies and some processes. And I was really at the grassroots level at that time. So I was working both with at-risk youth as well as adults and children with developmental disabilities at the time in the world of social work. And so I started thinking, man, what do I do? I'm in my mid-30s. What do I do? And I started thinking about what I just talked about, that whole creative mindset, that whole creativity. And I decided to go back to school. So I went back to get my second opportunity that's post-secondary after my first one in social work. I went into the world of communications and journalism. So I went to Red River College and the U of W and got a joint diploma degree with corporate communications at that point, specializing in journalism. We all know what happened to the world of journalism and where the state of journalism is at this time. But so I did journalism and communications and PR in Manitoba, and then an opportunity came up for me to move west when the provincial government had some really great opening that really sparked my interest. And I thought, I've been in Winnipeg for 38 years. It's time for something different. And so I went west and started working with the provincial government. And I worked there in the world of communications and issues management and corporate comms for some time. And then I transitioned into the municipal world, and I started working in municipal government for quite some time. And then an opportunity came up for me to get where I'm at now, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. So that's the Coles Notes version of my journey to where I am today.
Got it. Got it. Uh, I mean, so sorry, correct me if I'm wrong. I see you've spent a lot of like communications officer while I was understanding your profile and like I was trying to gather uh, about your introduction and what you were doing. Did you spend you seem to have spent more time with the government and the communications officer role and be beyond journalism and whatnot. So have you always been like a government person? Like have you always did that?
No, I started doing that. It was actually quite accidentally. The provincial government job just came to me when I moved out west originally. Was not because I was looking for a career in government. It's just at that time that position really looked like a right fit for me. So I was doing some work with government in Manitoba, but it was more of a client of mine more than working full time for the province or the municipal government here. But when I moved out west, it was more just the right time, that was in 2007, 2008, just the right opportunity for me I had some friends that had moved here. I knew some people. I thought it was the right fit. So I did a virtual interview and they thought it was the right fit. I remember it was August of 2008. I was on a camping trip in Manitoba and I hadn't told anybody I was doing this and told just my immediate family. And then suddenly announced it when I was here back home that I was out here. And they're like, what? So because I wasn't quite sure, right? I wanted to make sure it was right before I made all these plans. So, and then there was some restructuring in the province after I was there for a while where they were just changing some things that were no longer a right fit. So I had just, uh, I had just made a down payment on a house. I had just proposed to my now wife, and suddenly I found myself without a job shortly after a few years after I'd moved here because of the restructuring they did. So
Right.
I ended up, again, an opportunity came up that I'm forever grateful for to work in municipal government. And it went back to, again, you talked about when I was young, like it was driven into my being, my very fiber of my being, uh, that you give back to your community. And that can be looked in many ways, but municipal government appealed to me at that time because it's the closest to the people who are making decisions about your roads and your infrastructure are also the people who are maybe flipping your burgers and teaching your kids. So it was just a right fit. And so I am forever grateful for that opportunity. And I've always been a person that is what's over the next hill, what's around the next corner. So I feel like I always need to be challenged and I always need new opportunities. And if I'm in a place that just is a stagnant 9 to 5 or something that is no longer challenging me, then I know it's fair to both parties to move on. And so it's always been a positive thing when I've moved on. But yeah, so government was just one of those things where it was a right. And I was fortunate to work in what I call the fun part of government, if there is such a thing,
Right.
because I got to really tap into all that creative side and do some really fun things.
Got it. Got it. Canada is like it's like I'm 7 years old in Canada. But like for anyone can say you came yesterday, and like a totally valid statement. But it's been last 12 years. I spent some time in the U.S. I was brought up in India, like I've mentioned, and so I've lived in like different cities. I try to understand people after COVID, especially. I try to pay attention to humanity more. I think after just being secluded for a year and a half, like, you kind of understand you're not going to live in an ant colony anymore. Humanity is all we got, so you have to connect with the fellow humanity. So started appreciating humanity and started understanding their stories. Maybe that's one of the reasons I'm even doing these conversations and meeting more with people. And I think humanity's, well, I mean, even whether we do business or sales or whatever we do, our relationship. So I think humanity goes a long way. So also wanted to understand, like, meeting with different people, not just Canada, US, Europe, Asia. So there are a lot of commonalities, but there are also like some unique differences. I'm also like passionately trying to understand like what was Canada like when you were growing up in the 90s and 80s, like what was Canada like back then? And if you could paint a picture for us, then we'll get into journalism and to other some of your recent endeavors, of course.
So Canada's a big country. So I'm gonna structure that a little bit different about what was my Canada like, what was my province like, what was my community. So I grew up in, as I said, in it's a pretty booming community now, but at the time it was a pretty small community. I was brought up in the world of my father when he bought his house on the acreage. 28% interest, but you're paying 20,000 for a house. So, he bought it in the 70s and it was a time of, I grew up with a party line system on the acreage, like that, two rings, one short ring, two long rings. I knew it was our phone number, but any other ring I wasn't allowed to answer it. If I wanted to make a phone call, I had to pick it up, and if people were talking, then my dad would say, "Stop eavesdropping, get off the phone." So it was like, and we had the rotary phone. So, like how much technology in the world has changed even in my short time on this earth is quite something. But I would say my parents really believed in exploring the world around them. So back then that meant not getting online and Googling about different countries and learning things. It was about connecting with people. So they would drive into Winnipeg in an hour and a half, and we would do things in the city and get to experience. Winnipeg's a very multicultural city, so we got to experience things that were very different than my small town community, which was monoculture. Everybody kind of looked and sounded the
Right.
same. So
Right.
I'm very grateful for that. We also did a lot of, we'd load up the van and the camper and go across other parts of Canada or to the US to see different parts of our world. And so I think I know people that still live in that small town and have never ventured out of it. And I think their worldview is pretty narrow. Thankfully, they have the internet now to learn a little bit more, but I'm so grateful for that. I got to see so much of, even though it was a smaller one, like a couple provinces or whatever. But I remember just thinking, oh, there's so much difference just in Canada too, like from province to province and place to place. It's always been a multicultural country, but I think there's pockets of it where you don't really see that. And if it weren't for the type of family and friends that I had growing up, I probably wouldn't have seen it either until I was older. So, communication was not instant. We didn't have email at first until I was in my early 20s, mid 20s maybe. We didn't have, that was letter writing. But
Right.
But as far as Canada itself it was everywhere, not just Canada, but Canada, I would say my Canada was I always thought like another province was a different world. I could see the differences already. And I was like,
Mm.
this isn't Canada. This is like Alberta or BC or Ontario. It's not Canada. Canada's
Right.
Manitoba. So just how much technology and the world has changed in such a short time is incredible.
Right. Speaking of Canada, there's the nearest neighbor is US. And of course, like everyone has like seen the Hollywood movies and in shaping culture, definitely Hollywood and the movies have played a large role. And of course, US is definitely a massive influencer to many of the Canadian things that happens, whether it be politics and so many other things. And how was that experience like traveling to the US? One of my manager previously said like he said like the last time I went to Canada, I didn't need a passport. I just like showed my driver's license and I was able to go. Looks like it has changed. I don't know what. I mean, I used to work at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I used to be there, and that's what he told me actually. So, how was that experience? Like you crossing the border and visiting US, and how was the culture shaping, and how was Canada taking it? I'm sure like we were stronger as friends back then than we are now. I guess.
I'll give you, it's a really good, interesting thing that you had talked about how different the world is, but, um, so my brother still lives a mile from the North Dakota border. He still lives a mile from the North Dakota border. And, I grew up 32 kilometers from the US border. So a lot of times my parents would throw us into the vehicle and we would go down to this small town called Walhalla, North Dakota. Population maybe, I don't know what the population is now, but it probably hasn't grown much. And we would go across the border and we would just go to the park and get ice cream. And my dad would fill up with gas because it was way cheaper down there. But it already felt like a completely different world. But I remember my dad knew a lot of the border crossings on both ways by first name. A lot of them lived in the community on the Canadian side, or they lived right. And so he would just, a lot of times they just wave and go through. He didn't even have to show any ID or anything. Just, they knew him. They're like, that's Pete. Hey, Pete, go ahead. Right.
Right.
And, well, we all know that's changed now. And now my brother when he goes across the border, he has like, and not just because of the new regime, it's basically since 9/11.
Right.
They drill him with questions, even though the person that is asking the questions on both sides of the border, like on the Canadian side coming back, he lives in the community as my brother. And they're like, and most days they're like, hey, how's it going? No problem. But as soon as he's at the border, it's suddenly, and you are? And so it's just, they're under, it's a different time now. But back then I remember us walking across the border sometimes, no problem.
Right.
So especially the smaller border crossing, which is a little bit west of us, a smaller one, my dad would usually like to go through that one because the major crossing was on Highway 75-9. So it was busy and there was usually a lot of transport trucks. And there they were much more stricter. My dad didn't know anyone there. So he would only go there if we were in the US past 10 p.m. because the small one closed at 10 p.m. So then he would go the other way. But I remember even when we were traveling in the States, if we were camping or something, he would try to plan it that we could come back. Even if it meant driving 40 minutes west, he'd rather do that than go up a small little border crossing than the big one because he's like, yeah, everybody's friendly and they know me, but that's different now.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you see that taking shape in 2025? Especially these two, like the most friendly countries on earth. That I've always read that tagline: the most friendly countries on earth, Canada and the United States. How has that been? The reason I also ask Rudy is because, like, I come from India, and one of the neighboring countries is called Pakistan. Right? I've never met a single Pakistani friend until I was in the U.S. Actually, it is really moving for me. I'll tell you a short story that happened. So I was about 30 years old. I've never met a neighbor from a neighboring country. So the political narrative that painted the picture that is painted always in the news and everywhere is like, okay, fine, they're the enemies, they're the bad people, and everything like that, right? I mean, that's the political narrative. Okay, it has always been painted, right? I was in Philadelphia, I believe, at the time, and like I met a cab driver, beautiful, like really good guy, well dressed, like really good looking, like probably mid age, 40 kind of thing. And he's a poet, and he told me a poem. It was a 25-minute cab drive, and he told me a poem along the way. And when I got into the cab, I was really nervous. And he told me I'm from Pakistan, and I was really nervous because this is the first time I'm ever meeting a neighboring country person, and I was really nervous actually. And he ended up being a really nice guy actually. But then I understood like some of the biases that I had, and it took some time to go away. And then I think I met some amazing people who are from Pakistan and other countries as well. So I think humanity has a lot in common than it is not. That's what I'm realizing. But it's these are political biases that are actually like engraved in stone, things like that. But I used to look up to Canada and US as like inspiring examples of like some of the most friendly countries. And some of the recent things that's happening in 25 or more recently, I'm not a huge fan of that. I wish we don't go that path too much and stay friendlier. From where I'm coming, I wouldn't like that. So how do you see 20 that's the reason I want to give you that backstory to get your thoughts on how do you see the current scenario with US and Canada?
The way I always say is the one way to get over your biases is to meet people. And so
100%.
I have so many amazing friends down in the US on all sides of the political spectrum. I've got friends that are Republican, Democrat, independent, old school Republican, the new, I guess for lack of a different term, MAGA supporters. They're all over, and it's obviously quite a bit different, and it's easy to get pretty agitated and hot and bothered about some of this stuff. But what pains me the most right now is like I other than my little recent trip to Hawaii, I generally personally am deciding not to go to the US right now for it's just my own conviction right now with what's going on. So I guess maybe I'm divulging a little bit where I stand politically, but I'm pretty centrist when it comes to politics. But I would say I would say that the biggest part for me is the not being able to experience what you just said. Once you are with the people and you're in the communities, you can
100%.
really focus on all those great things. And so I've grieved a little bit about it because I usually go and um, it's really going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years um, politically and how that influences everything else that we do. But to me, I'm a relationship guy first, and I really
Me too.
I really want to make sure the relationships stay strong. And sometimes that doesn't always work if you're political or you're political or you're religious or anything else is too far apart, or if it starts impacting real people's lives in negative ways, then you have to make a decision. But most of my friendships in the US have remained, even though there's been some conflict and some struggles as we debate these things, but healthy debate is okay. So I don't know how it's gonna end up or where we're gonna be, but I hope we get back to those times where we're what you just described, the two friendly neighbors, and we can do it like family embarrassment where we make fun of each other in a good way. You
Right.
know,
Right.
but
Yeah.
not so heated. I'd love to get back to that point where maybe not to the point where I just wave to the guy when I cross the border, but at least I'm not worried that I'm going to have to delete everything off my phone before I cross the border, right? So hopefully we get back to it. And I have some really good friends from Pakistan, by the way.
Absolutely. I mean, like, here's what I'm saying. There are good people everywhere, and there are also like bad people everywhere. That's the fact,
It's totally true.
right? And just switching gears in terms of like some of your journalism things, some questions I want to ask about journalism in general is like the concept of journalism is basically informing the people about what's happening and keeping the people in power accountable. That's a fundamental purpose of journalism, right? So how was journalism like in your careers in your earlier time, and how has it changed, and why do you think that change happened? I was constantly trying to understand the change. Some say corruption, so many you can throw words, but why that change really happened was something I try to understand. I'm more like a truth seeker. I try to find truth, and until I keep asking the questions, not the answer. I keep asking the question until I get the answer that is convincing. So I'm trying to understand here, like what happened to the political spectrum. No, sorry, to the journalistic situation. What was it like before? And if you could paint a picture and what it has become, and if you know why it has become like that.
Well, again, I mean, dating myself a little bit, but I'm still to this day a guy who likes to hold the book or hold a newspaper. And yes, I mean, there's advantages to this and there's advantages to all of this, but there's also disadvantages. And so I remember even as early or as not too long ago, even as 2007 to 2010, um, just at work or in the morning reading my paper. And there were some journalists that I really, really respected because you're never going to get totally away from a bias. Everybody has biases, whether they're conscious or not conscious. But in my view, back then, when I got into journalism, and I was always really interested in investigative journalism. I didn't really go too far down that path, but that was always like you, I'm a truth seeker. And I'd like to say that my BS detector is pretty high, but the truth is not always obvious and there's multiple sides to it. So I always liked the journalism side where all I did was ask the hard questions on both sides, report what I don't want to say report the facts, but report what I've heard and known. Make sure you ask really good questions. Hold people accountable. Truth. I'm a speak truth to power guy, and then let the people decide for themselves. I think there was when I was in journalism, it was right at the tail end of what journalism once was, and it took.
And what period was it? Was it like just to get an idea? So like the 90s or the early 2000s?
So I went back to school for my communications and journalism in PR in like my communications degree, and then on the diploma side on the journalism and PR side, 2005 to 2007.
Got it. Okay.
And then I moved to the Edmonton area in 2008, summer of 2008. I spent the summer here in 2007, and then I went back to Manitoba, and then I came back in 2008. And I remember in 2008 when I moved here, community newspapers, even like I'm not even talking about the big robust journalists. Even the community newspapers were thriving, but that only took a year and a half, and they were gone, and everything started to shut down. So part of it is convenience. Part of it is everybody became a journalist, which is, if you're a truth seeker, it makes your job more difficult because now you have multiple perspectives and who's an authority on what, and suddenly everybody became an authority.
Very true.
And or thought they were an authority. And so I like to define like what makes someone an authority, what are their credentials to speak to this, right? And so in my soul, I'm still a bit of a journalist. And when I was trying to decide whether I wanted to focus on the marketing side, the communication side, the PR side, or the journalism side, when I was back in school, a wise old crusty journalist who was now an instructor at that time told me, if journalism's still in your soul, do that first. Because it's easier to transition into PR and comms than it is the other way. So I did that until I could see the signs of what was happening. And like I told you at the beginning, I'm always what's next? What can I do to reinvent myself? I started to go into a different field. So I think that to answer your question about why is it changing. And actually, I think on some of it is just laziness on the human side. I have to say, like, if I'm being totally blunt, it's people people don't want to do the hard work of and I'm generalizing, and there are a lot of people who do want to do this, but it seems that people don't want to do the hard work of uncovering that stone and looking at what's underneath and flipping things over and looking at things from multiple sides and really get to what they think is their truth. And I think it's a little bit lazy to just read things and believe them. So
Hmm.
I'm a skeptic by nature. I'm always a questioner. I'll always ask the hard questions and of myself and others, not because I want to be a jerk, but because I think truth matters. And
This.
I've had some really skilled people in my life who have been able to show me my own biases and where I'm blind, where I'm not aware of. And so that's just how I approach everything. And I think journalism, I think it's changed because people want convenience. They want quick. They got busy lives. Yeah. So that's the personal side. And then on the way the world is, it's just the way the world has moved so fast with the digital world that people just can't really keep up to what was there. I remember I was always a big Money Sense reader of the magazine Money Sense. I loved getting that. I loved the highlight for me was when I was profiled in that magazine one time about, they didn't use my real name or anything, but it was basically about a free portfolio makeover in the magazine. And there was that issue. There was an editorial that said, despite the way the world is changing, we will always be a hard print magazine. Until 1 year later when they announced they weren't going to be. They were only going to be digital because advertisers are spending where they think there's more revenue.
Right.
As the world of journalism changed, I started seeing the community papers getting smaller and even the big papers getting smaller, but it was 90% real estate ads. And the rest was like circulated, or then there was no journalism anymore. And the writing is terrible and the journalism is terrible and there's regurgitated content. And so, yeah, I think it's just a combination of, I don't want to be insulting to anybody and say they're lazy, but I think just in general, that's what I see. But there's also a lot of people who it's just a different time now with the digital world. And we're going to see that even more with AI. And that doesn't mean people are lazy. It just means the world's changing. And if we don't adapt, we're gone.
Right. 100%. Just my observation, I want to be completely wrong here. I wish I'm completely wrong here. When I saw the US news media, the mainstream media at the time, I used to go to a restaurant or a bar. There'll be CNN playing. I'm sure you've seen it. There'll be CNN playing, ABC. What's the other one? There's Fox News and the news outlet, MSNBC, NBC, CNBC, and all these different news channels. And you see a keyword, right? For example, Russia collusion or any keyword, right? You see a word and you see that keyword repeating in every news channel. I mean, when you mention lazy, no one has said the word lazy when it comes to mainstream media. You're the first to say that. So maybe that is what it is. Because like you see a keyword in ABC, it's the same thing in CNN, same thing in the other news networks. Every news network looks like they get a script and they read the script. That's what I felt like to me. Are you not doing real journalism, real like the investigative journalism? Are you not really like researching and actually reporting it? I thought that's what they were doing. It was really refreshing to look at that from that lens. And the other one they say is like you change the incentive, you can change the outcome. And I don't know if the incentives of the mainstream media, journalistic media has actually changed over a period. Maybe that's one of the reasons to see this trend. That is another question I keep asking about journalism actually, because recently CNN, one of the most popular networks, not to take a dig at it, I have nothing against CNN by the way, but they started a Prime service called CNN Prime. Right? They spend millions of dollars. Some say it's like 30 million, some say it's $100 million, but whatever. It's millions of dollars they poured on it. It's like a video service, like you get a Prime news channel, and they started it, but within 32 days or 40 days they shut it down because there were no subscribers. No one wanted it. No one bought the service. They shut it down after spending tens of millions of dollars. Actually, within a period of like 32 days. It's a real news. So I was wondering what's actually happening, and I've stopped watching news altogether since 2019 or 2020. I try to do that. Now I've tried more of that also to come out of the social media news cycle. It kind of gives me more peace. But I think somewhere along the way, one, they are could be the lazy in that category, All the incentives have changed. Which is that, Rudy?
I think first of all, I still think that the Canadian and the U.S. politics or the media is very different. I'm just gonna give you some context before I answer your question. And I remember I was in the U.S. a number of years ago, and I have a pretty centrist friend of mine who said, "I want to show you something." He said, "Sit your ass down on this couch." So I sit down, and he's like, turns on Fox News, and we watched Fox News for about 30 minutes, and everybody knows this now, but this is a number of years ago. And I'm like, that bias is ridiculous. That is just over the top. Now he says, "Well, watch this." He turned it to CNN.
Right.
It was another total obvious bias. So I think the whole world, I don't know if in the US, there's some people who say big money is controlling that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. I'm sure that's part of it. I think in Canada, yes, there's always obviously different people with interests that like to control the media and what's being said with money. I think at its root, people have lost the ability, and I don't think it's even taught maybe it is now. I haven't been in high school for a long time, but
Right.
back in the day, no courses on logic, no courses on critical thinking, no courses on questioning what you have heard, no questions on how to do basic research and basic analysis and basic asking good questions. And I think if you didn't have that and then you go through life without learning that skill, you're at a disadvantage. For those who have learned that skill or have that innate ability, I think they're in a better position overall than those who don't have that skill set. And it's especially now in today's digital world, it's easy to learn. I mean, I know people my age or a little bit younger who are taking courses on critical thinking and logic now, because the way the world is now, why do you think people fall for scams all the time, right? So it's a skill that has to be like anything else. You have to keep exercising it and making that muscle stronger. And I can't even remember what your original question was now, but I tend to go in rabbit trails. Just ask my staff.
Right. No, my question was around has the incentive changed somewhere along the way? Because when you change the incentive, the outcome changes. Definitely the outcomes have changed. So I was wondering what is the incentive to basically purely produce news that people are not even consuming actually,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think part of it was on a paid subscription, the Prime. Yeah, right. It was.
Yeah, it was. They launched it and they shut it down in 32 days.
I mean, people were having difficulty paying $1.50 a month to access the Winnipeg Free Press when they first went digital, because they're like, I can read it all for free online. I don't need a paywall. I think that people don't want to pay for that when they can find almost anything online or with an AI search or a Google search now.
100%.
That's probably an example. I mean, I can't speak for them, but you got to do, like any business, you should do some research before you. And so I think that maybe it's just unless you're paying to an echo chamber of your certain demographic that is going to pay that to be fed conspiracy theorists. And I'm not saying that's what CNN was doing. I'm not suggesting that, but I mean, why would people pay if they can just find it anywhere?
That's true. That's right. Absolutely. No, no, yeah, yeah.
Just say, I will say I do pay for some journalists. That is right back to how it, in my mind, what good journalism should be. So I do pay for that so I can get a more centrist, as much as possible, non-biased source. But
So what is good journalism, Rudy? In your thoughts, in your head, this shouldn't be this way. The news is not reported this way. I would rather report it this way. If you were heading CBC or CNN or Fox, whatever media enterprise, how should good journalism look like? Because since you have spent enough time in that career, how would Rudy run a futuristic journalist? Like, let's say you're starting a few years from now, the Rudy network. How will that look like?
well, I mean, it's the excuse me, fundamental principles of good journalism are set aside your own ego and set aside your own whatever you think might be true. And I wouldn't even say both sides, there's multiple sides. So it comes down to asking really good questions, really trying to finding the right people to ask the questions to. You want to make sure you have the right people answering your questions, but multiple perspectives, reporting them on all the different sides and letting the people decide comes back down to that. It's like if someone says there's coffee in this cup and someone else says there's tea in that cup, but I'm not able to actually check into that cup, I got to ask questions to help me understand who put that in there.
Right.
Someone says VJ did it, another person says Joe did it. Like the questions are asking good questions to determine what is in there and who put it in there and why, and getting all the different perspectives. So, I mean, that's dumbing it down pretty much. I struggle a little bit with the way journalism has become what I call the dumbing down of the generation too. I just feel like it goes back to people not being able to think critically and asking the right questions and doubting. So if I was starting journalism today, it would just come down to hearing the different sides, asking questions. And if someone is saying something that doesn't make sense, keep asking those good questions.
How was your switch to marketing take shape? Where did the thought come from? I know you spent time in Alberta Motor Association,
Yeah.
leading a team there, I suppose. How did that switch take over, and what were your observations from the marketing and communications? You're a communications expert already. Now you're in your marketing division.
Yeah. So they're very different, but they're joined at the hip in many ways. And I always tell people, journalism, communications, marketing, PR are very different disciplines, but they're connected. And when I interview people for positions, I'll often ask them to define the differences for me to see if they know the differences and their approach to it. But again, it just is a natural progression. So going from journalism into public relations and corporate communications was a natural evolvement. And then when I was in those roles, I was already doing a lot of the creative side of it. I was thinking, how can we take these complex topics and make them in a way that people understand, that's creative, that resonates with the audiences. When I moved over from government to support AMTA for a while, which again was just sort of something that landed on I wasn't looking to go there, it just kind of landed on my plate. We started doing a lot more. We had both a marketing and communications team there, just like we did in government. And I started, because of capacity issues, and we had a really great team and they were talented, but like a lot of nonprofits, you have limited capacity and limited resources. So we started outsourcing some of that, and I developed a relationship with the company, with the owners of the company that I now own. And we started doing a lot of really strategic marketing and brand work. And then I was at a stage in my life where I was, my friends joke with me that I'm in my 55th year of my midlife crisis. So I was starting to look at, what else do I want to do? And the owners of the company also wanted to make a transition. We developed a relationship outside of the business that we were doing together. And I was approached whether I wanted to buy the business. And like I said to you at the beginning of the call, I've never done things the right way. Most people don't buy a business when they're in their 50s, but I did. It wasn't as quick as that. There was a lot of process and, business analysis and questioning of myself. I spoke to both, not just business advisors and financial experts, but also people who've known me my whole life. And I've asked them to be blunt with me and say, can or should I do this, right? So long story short is I took that plunge and bought the business, and here I am.
I mean, like the life expectancy is increasing. People used to live like 40, 50, 60 years. Now, so the midlife can come at any time. So if you're going to live to 200 years, like
Well, I always go with joke.
anytime, that's what I'm saying.
I always joke with people. They said, you never know how long you're going to live, so it's never too early to start your midlife crisis, right? So
That's right.
but I mean, I also, I had quite a health scare in 2016. I've always been very healthy, but a cell went sideways in my body and I got very sick very quickly. And so that was already, I think, a time where I was like, so, I've always been a big world traveler. I've traveled all over the world. I still try to do that wherever I can, once or twice a year. I like to. It's a little bit different now because I bought the business and I have other responsibilities. But I like to. I can't just get up and go now like I once did. But I do like to travel to a different country every year or two if I can. But in 2016, when you have a pretty sudden major health scare, you start asking the existential questions of life, which I was already asking, but now it's on steroids. So I was like, what do I want to do? And what gives me the opportunity to give back and to invest in people and to take everything I've learned over my years for good? And it seemed like between that and all the different nonprofit boards that I'm now sitting on, it just seemed like the right thing to do again. I've always been not really self-doubting, but I've always been questioning whether whatever I do, is this right for me, or can I do it, or whatever. But I think when you have a big scare like that, you just jump in, because if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, and you do something else. They always say life's short, but you don't realize it until you're 48 hours away from crossing the side. So yeah.
Right. So you don't have to go through the condition that you went, but like you came out on the other side. I see you. I'm having a conversation with you, which is a positive thing. But like, what are the takeaway lessons coming out of that? Like, I'm sure it's probably like life changing moments at times hit you when you're most unexpecting, and you learn a lot of lessons along the way. Actually, so what were your lessons learned from that? Actually, from that period, whatever.
So yeah, I mean, my story isn't a secret in any way. So I was cross country skiing in Manitoba in 2016. I went to visit my mom, and parents. My mom was having her 80th birthday, and I was cross country skiing. 2 weeks later, I was collapsed on the floor back here. There was no sign of illness before that. I got rushed into the hospital, and they basically said, if we don't operate in 48 hours, you're dead. And pulled out a couple tumors out of me, and that was that. And so then, yeah. So
From the brain?
no, one was in my belly, and the other one came. My cancer metastasized in July. So that was in March of 2016. And then I was doing adjuvant chemo, and then in July of 20 same year, they noticed things on my liver, and they said, yeah, it's metastasized. So I did a second surgery in November. And so March of next year and November of next year will be 10 years that I've been cancer free. So it's interesting. I don't think about it every day. But it is always, you can talk to any cancer survivor and it's unique to everybody. But I think it's always in the back of your mind in some subconscious way that influences your decisions. I think some of the key lessons that I've learned is that most of what we do doesn't matter, right? And what are the things that really do matter is your relationships and your what you give back to the community, and being a whole lot less self-centered, really focused on others. And so that's, I think, a big part of it. And also, we don't overthink things. Just life's short, enjoy it, do the right things, treat people well. For my big lessons are, what do you want to do in the short life we have? Do it. So travel, invest in people, be a good person, try something new. Like for me, the business, that's something people don't normally purchase a long-standing business in a competitive market, and some kind of threats from technology. And you might argue, but we use that to our advantage. So it's not really a threat, but most people don't do that. But I'm like, I'll try this. Let's do it. And it's not as simple as that. I'm surrounded by a heck of a great team. My staff are, unbelievable what they do, and they deserve most of the credit for any success we have, if not all the credit. It's them. They do the They're great with their clients. They're great with their staff, with each other. They're well respected in the community. Our clients love them. But at the end of the day, I just try it. Let's do something different and work our butts off at it and see what comes of it.
My observation, I could be completely wrong here, Rudy. Please correct me. You're a really passionate person. Actually, I see that every time I interact with you, and you have lived the life, you've seen the life, and like when you say your BS meter is really high, I mean, I totally get it because you've already seen it. Okay, come on, I've seen this a million times. Doesn't surprise me. I'm not surprised. I get that when you said that. But what excites you and what motivates you, Rudy, as a person? Like, what keeps you going?
I learned something in the 3 years I've owned this business and also in life in general is there's the difference between motivation and discipline. So if my business is to be successful or my relationships are to be successful, I have to marry discipline and motivation. Motivation wanes. So like today, it's minus 1,000 in Edmonton. And did I want to get out in my vehicle and go out? No, I had zero motivation to do that. But I had discipline and knew what I wanted in the long run. So that's what I did. What motivates me is other people seeing other people successful. My team right now, knowing that they thrive and do good work. My clients, knowing if I was at an event this morning, a new venture in the business world, if I could help them be successful, I've really learned, especially since my scare, it's more about others than myself. The other thing that motivates me is going back to what I said at the beginning of the call is what's underneath that rock. What's the next, like I always want to discover things. I want to learn new things. I want to see what's out there. I want to explore this world. So I want to be able to uh, travel, and I want to be whether that's finding something unique and exciting in my own city, meeting a new person that captivates me, and I want to sit down. I mean, that's how you and I met. I was like the first time I ever heard about you, I thought you were a scammer, not because of any other reason than not because of you. This is all because of me. It's just because I'm like, and you're not the only one. There's other people I felt that way too. I'm like, but then I'm like, this guy's really interesting, and so we connected, right? And so my motivation is what are people about? Like what makes them tick? What are they all about? And the big thing is what are their stories? How did they get to where they are today? Whether it's someone successful in business or whether it's how did you end up in Wetaskiwin and lead and run a successful business and a really wonderful podcast? How did you hook up with your other two podcasters that you like? How did that happen? I'm curious. Curiosity is what motivates me more than anything. But this is a big world, but a small world. And so what is maybe it comes back to that creativity and journalism again, is like, what's at the root of all of this?
Right.
So curiosity,
Yeah.
maybe I've never fully grown up. I'm still a child with curiosity. Those are the two things that motivate me. Curiosity and other people.
Yeah.
That's what motivates me.
We have never said it anywhere on any of the pages, on podcasts, anywhere, but I think one word we haven't used and which is very obvious is actually curiosity. For Pathfinders, if I don't have the curiosity about what the other person is about, what their story is about, I think what drives me is I think curiosity is a big thing for me too. I'm curious about a lot of things, a lot of people, and and some of the stories that they have. It's very unique, actually. No one there was this person who was saying, especially in a competitive world, and he says like, yeah, there is no competition. He says why? Because no one can beat you at you being you. There's no competition. Just be authentic. Just be you, right? So I really take that and I try my best to be authentic and just say it as it is. So yeah, I'm learning. I'm evolving. I can tell. The follow-up question to you is like, what does success look to you, Rudy? Of course, I understood like discipline plays a major part than actually motivation. Absolutely get. You can get motivated on January 1st, the first week of Jan, and it's like when you're in June, like, are you still motivated? Then you need discipline to keep going. I totally get it. But what does success look to you? What is your version of success? Definition of success?
I always struggled with that question, and I still do.
Mm.
I've always been a person who tends to fall into, despite what I've just said here, and despite what a lot of people have seen, those who know me best know that I still struggle with self-doubt, and I still struggle with perceptions of success and failure and what that is, right? Not to get clinical here or anything, but you guys you and your partners run a great podcast called Authentic Hustle. So I'm going to talk about authenticity for a bit here. And I think success for me, as I struggle with this whole idea of what that looks like for me personally and my circle of influence, is I think the biggest word would be peace. Do you have peace about how you've lived your life? Do you have peace about how you've ran your business? Could you say that if your business, anybody's business isn't sustainable, did you fail? Yes, but I also believe that failure is a form of success, really. It's just, I never used to think that way, but I think success is really, tomorrow, am I further ahead than I was today? I have
Can you tie the two, the failure and success? When you said failure is a form of success, can you tie the two?
Yeah, I'm learning to. I'm learning to. I tend to get a little bit, if something, however you define failure, I tend to stew on it a bit longer than most people do, rather than, learn the lesson and move on. One of my things that I've learned over my years is to not spend too much time, learn what you can from it and move on. I have two really good people in my life who have helped me over the years. One of them, I was talking to him one day, and he's quite a bit older than me, but he was my life coach before life coaches were even a thing. Like, I don't know, like, he's not a formal life coach. He's just a guy that I've known, who I respect. And ever since I was like a little kid, he always saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So he took me under his wing, and it's just a relationship I've had with him over the years. It's nothing formal. I don't pay him for life coach services, but I was talking to him about a number of things that didn't work out the way I wanted them to. And he's like, we've talked about this like 8 times now. So he's like, I got an exercise for you that I want you to do. I want you to go out to, you're from southern Manitoba where there's lots of farms. I'd like you to go to a pasture, and I would like you to find the biggest piece of cow manure you can find. And I want you to really study that thing and spend a lot of time in it. And I didn't do that. His point was, you don't have to spend a lot of time in the crap to know it was crap. You know it's crap, right? So now what? Are you going to just keep there and keep stirring up the crap? Or are you going to say, let's leave that crap behind, learn what we can from it, and move forward? So he's like, we've had 8 conversations about this. Like, it can't change. So what now? And so success for me is like learning to take those, the gems out of the crap and leave the crap behind, and then stop thinking about the crap, because otherwise you're just going to do it again. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, how has what I've done contributed to making my small world better? Whether it's for my clients, whether it's through this conversation with you and for your listeners, whether it's, have I made my world a better place in some way? That's success. And obviously, if my business is successful and we are able to grow and, do all the things that you want in business, do well, make our clients are happy, we get lots of referrals. That's all easy measurable that everybody says, right? And we all want that for our businesses. You want that for your business. You want more leads, you want more referrals, you want more. I do too. I mean, send them my way. We'll make them happy, right? That's great. If 1 year from now in my business, my revenues are better than they are today, I have not just more clients, but the right clients, because we don't just take anybody, and their lives are better from a business perspective, or even on a personal perspective from engaging with my team, and they're happy and pleased, then that's success.
Got it. Like 10 years ago, I came across a quote. It's slightly on the philosophical and spiritual side. And when I first heard this saying, I couldn't understand it. I struggle with it even still today. It goes like this. It says like, peace begins when ambition ends. That's the quote, right? It could be Eastern philosophy, whatever. But I really struggled with that. I never understood it because like I'm ambitious. Like
Me too.
I'll be starting more future things, more business, more ideas. Like it never stops. I'm sure it's the same
Yeah.
for you too. So people who are entrepreneurial, the mind doesn't stop. It's a 24/7 machine that's working. So I still struggle with it actually. peace begins when ambition ends. But I don't think my ambitions are going to end. But I think somewhere along the way, I stopped finding fascination with, okay, I need that sports car or I need that mansion. I don't think any of that is going to, any material thing is going to make me happy or bring peace to me, actually. I mean, okay. I mean, okay to have a home and a car. It's great, but I don't cry about it that I don't have the latest series of BMW. No. So I'm trying to be at peace at like trying to be minimalistic and then just have what you need and your basic needs pretty much. So I struggle with it myself. So I don't know if you have an answer, but like
I
struggle with it myself. So
yeah, and I do too. I'm not everything I've said doesn't mean that I now am living in congruence with what I just said. That's how I define success. It doesn't mean that I'm doing that. What I want is, people who say money can't buy happiness are actually incorrect because would you rather have money or not have money? I'd rather,
obviously,
right? So there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, we all want, that's why we're in business. We're not just in business to make money. We also are ambitious. We like new ideas. We want to take an idea and see it to fruition and become successful, and then either grow it or sell it for a profit. And then we want to like success is taking those ideas and making them happen. If you just have an idea and stir in it, that's not success either. You want to do something with it, right? Or if it's not, or throw the idea out and get a new idea. But it's what drives. I'm driven by wanting to earn more too, and wanting to have a life that is where I don't have to think about those things. It's all of it, and I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I don't think I don't need to have, like, my father used to tell me if he'd go to a business person or a store or something, and he would say, if you buy this today, you can save 10%. And my dad would say, that's really great. And if I don't buy it, I can save 100%. So, um, uh, uh, so, I think if you can be just a wise steward of everything, you're going to make more money. You're going to have stronger relationships. You'll be healthier. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's a holistic approach to all of this. And I think, nope, we've all been around people who aren't ambitious, and that's not fun. So I think maybe peace isn't the right word for that quote. Maybe contentment would be a better one, right? Because I think entrepreneurs are not really, even maybe my word even earlier, peace isn't correct. Maybe content is the right word, because content doesn't mean you're just going to sit there and this is as good as it gets. I mean, we as entrepreneurs, I don't think ever have total peace, and maybe peace isn't the right word, because we always want to be cover that next rock, or building that next business, or just getting that next business relationship, or expanding, or new markets, or all of this stuff. So maybe it's contentment is, hey, as for an entrepreneur, if that doesn't work, then hey, that's great. I'll go to the next one. And that'll drive you even more. So contentment is like, if this doesn't work, then I'll just try something else. So
I mean, we joke around at home, like when my wife asks me something like, what do you want? Like, I want peace. And I say that, yeah, there's a green piece in the refrigerator. Do you want that?
yeah, that's right. There's a piece of pie in
So I already have like peace, which is green in color.
Yeah, no, maybe peace isn't the right word. It's more
But right. Yeah. Course.
contentment, and also just like take your business serious, take your relations, but don't take your life too seriously. Like, it's just reinvent yourself and keep going. And I think, I've met so many, since I bought the business, I've met so many amazing people who have taught me just that. It's just like, ambition, discipline, and motivation are joined at the hip in all three. And I think from an entrepreneur, if you don't have all three of those, you're kind of hooped, right? Because you can have all the motivation in the world, but if you don't have discipline and ambition, you're not going to be successful. And if you have ambition, but you don't have any discipline, you're not going to be motivated, right? So, and I think the other thing is surrounding yourself with the right people. Like, for me, success is also being acutely aware of my strengths, and being acutely aware of where those things that I can grow in, and making acutely aware of those things where I'm never going to be good at that. So if you asked me to come and do renovations at your house, you and your wife would be very mad if I said yes to that, because it's not going to look very good. But I would bring someone in who could. So in my business, it's the same thing. I know I know the things that I'm really good at, and I know the things that I want to improve on that will help me in my business. And I know the things that I never want to do, even with discipline, or I shouldn't be doing, or I'm aware of the things that I'm never going to be good at that. After 55 years on this earth, I realize I'm never going to be good at that. That's just not me. Let me bring people in who are and free up my time. I've been profoundly influenced by Buy Back Your Time by Ken Martell, and his ideas are so cute. You are so acute, and you scale it to your level of your life. And Martell is significantly wealthier than me. So
So what's his name again? Dan Martin?
Ken Martell, yeah, Buy Back Your Time. Any entrepreneur, business owner, or even person should read it. It's like time is the one
Got it.
commodity you'll never get back, right?
It is the ultimate currency, people say. Time is the ultimate currency. You're not getting it back again.
Yeah.
100%.
So what do you want to do with your time?
The reason I got into the podcasting is definitely Kelly's a huge inspiration. I keep telling that everywhere. But I think initially, I'll be totally honest. I mean, we thought we're going to start the podcast and the business is going to people are going to come running. None of that happened actually. But I think the conversations are, I think it moves the needle forward. I don't know. It kind of moves the needle in a different way. For the person, for me, for people, anyone watching actually. So I kind of find it really interesting to have these conversations because some of these kind of conversations are actually missing from society in general. Hey, good morning and good evening and please and thank you and Merry Christmas and like Happy New Year. So it's like I've told myself like right around 2021, I'm not having any of those shallow conversations anymore. I'm done with it. I'm 41 right now, Rudy. They say you're born at 40. I'm 1 year old right now, technically. So by that measure, I've told myself I'm not having any of this shallow conversation. It has to be meaningful for the person and for me. So that's why I could, like, whatever like questions I ask, it's not like, okay, fine, let's get your resume and like, let's talk about, no, why this happened. Like, how was it like? I was not in this time period in the country. I want to know. I mean, like when I ask you certain questions, it's actually one is coming from curiosity. Another one is like, if anyone else also listening, they might find it valuable also. So it's coming from that angle, I think. If anyone wants to listen to the podcast, listen at like, you know how I think, how stupid I am. So so that's what it is. But I have great guests are great. They have fantastic, very interesting journeys I can tell from all across the board.
I think that I'm like one of the reasons that I'm in the industry I'm in right now is I love, we haven't really talked about this, but you just did storytelling. And telling people stories like is really, people have fascinating stories. And I've always been drawn to hearing how did you get to where you are today? Just like you asked me the same questions. And when you and I met the first time, that was a question I had for you is how did you end up where you are? Like in life, not in Canada and Wetaskiwin, although I was curious how you ended up in Wetaskiwin too. Not that there's anything wrong with Wetaskiwin. I was just curious how you ended up there, but just your business too, like everything and how you got to Canada and how you became successful in your business and how you met your wife and all those things. I'm just fascinated in people's stories. Being in the world of brand and marketing our job is to tell businesses or nonprofit stories in a way that their audiences can understand. And so I'm like you in that way. And that's probably why I'm a podcast junkie. It's because I'm hearing people's stories.
Are you? Okay. Yeah, I love podcasts. I learn a lot listening to podcasts. I think I started listening to more podcasts, especially through COVID, and because you had nothing else to do. Like, right? Like, so all the movies have already been watched. There were not enough movies getting released. So what else do? You consume podcasts, and I ran into so many interesting podcasts. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey regardless. But we ended up in Wetaskiwin because like we loved Edmonton. That's an interesting story because both wife and I, we used to work in Edmonton, and like she from West Edmonton, I used to be in the downtown Edmonton. But Wetaskiwin is the place where we found the home for the price of home that we wanted to buy. So I think that played a part, definitely. Like, and yeah, and we wanted to keep our expenses as minimal as possible, so that I was switching gears from the corporate career into an entrepreneurial role where we wanted to keep our expenses low, and because we're trying a lot of new things, so that kind of helps, I think. But I don't regret it. Edmonton is just 30-40 minutes away. I can just like go anywhere.
I'm telling you, there's people who live in Edmonton that spend more time getting to the other side of the city than you do coming from Wetaskiwin to Edmonton because of traffic.
You know what is the plus thing also, Rudy, for me is like, I mean, getting around Wetaskiwin is 2 minutes or 5 minutes, which is not surprising. And the other thing is like Edmonton is the number 3 city in all of Canada.
Number 3 city ranked by different parameters, affordability, and so many other things. And then number 1 is Calgary. So for me, Calgary is like just 2 hours away to go to the Calgary airport. So I get to live between both Calgary and Edmonton, which is kind of a plus.
Yep. I
But
used to joke with my wife just purely from the fact that I love to travel.
Right.
Nothing else. When I first moved to Alberta, I said, we should live in Red Deer. Not because Red Deer is the greatest thing, but I could fly from Calgary and I could fly from Edmonton.
Right in between. Right.
I mean, her family is all here in the Spruce Grove area. So, I mean, it makes sense. And she's got a very established career and doing well. So, but I've always been let's uproot and go here. Like, nothing's tying me down. Let's go. So,
Yeah.
So
someone asked me.
We ground each other.
Yeah, sorry.
She keeps me like, it's good to be in one place. And I'm like, it's good to spread your wings. So we do both. And now I own a business and have a nice acreage just north of Spruce Grove. So we're not going anywhere, but every year we still, I say I'm going whether you're coming with me or not. And she always does.
So I know you're a huge fan of traveling. Any interesting places that you went that you want to talk about?
I could talk your ear off on this one. I've been to so many places.
What's the most like? Give me the top 2.
I would say just from a totally resonating with I need to change. I'm going to do something different. Was in 1999. I was working in Manitoba at a job at the time, and again going back to what I said earlier, I'm like, I need to do something different. I had a friend of mine. He and I had been talking for almost a year about just getting up and going and traveling. Again, people don't normally do that at 29. I was 29 then. He came into my office and he said, I did it. I bought my ticket. I'm going. You coming? And I mean, I can't do that where I'm at now, but at that time I could. And I said, yep. Gave my notice and away we went. And we went to Europe first. And then it was really cold in Europe. So I went down to North Africa. I knew nothing about Morocco at the time, but I just hopped into Morocco and I ended up loving it. And I was there for like 6 weeks, just traveling around Morocco. Culturally, it was so different. The scents and the sounds and the smells and the music and the people, it was just so different than Southern Manitoba. So that was a really big highlight. Other really, and I was there during some of their most important religious holidays and got invited into a home with a family where we had a big meal and I got to experience their culture and it was really great. Japan was also really incredible to me. And then I've been on a number of African safaris, and I've been able to do it in an affordable way because I know people who know people who know people who run safaris and I get, deals. So I've always enjoyed that too, because I'm also a real big fan and lover of nature. So I'm often in the backcountry hiking in the mountains for a 4-day trek or taking my kayak out on the lake somewhere. So to do that in Africa where I'm like, I don't know where I am. I hope this guide is trustworthy because that's a lion right over there. But I was just kidding. It was just wonderful to know that I am really in the depths of nature right now. And whether I'm in the mountains or in the lake or in Africa, I realize, again, we're small in this world. And if you can just make your world better, your business better, your people better, and have your own success, that always grounds me. I come back reset knowing this is great.
Right. Switching gears, talking about marketing and about that, how did that take place and what was your mid 50s or early 50s and you wanted to make a switch and like, why marketing actually? I'll paint a picture for you. Something I spoke to one marketing expert like some time ago. She doesn't live here anymore. She moved to the Middle East, but she told me something interesting that marketing is like an atmosphere of a company. It has to be part of every department of anything you're doing. It's not just the sales. It's not just the pre-sales. It has to be everywhere. And I found it really fascinating. I think the brain for marketing is somewhat different is what I felt. It's not sales. It's not about awareness actually. So it's not brand pushing. It's multiple things actually tied together as marketing. What was your I would use the word motivation here to get into the world of marketing?
Well, I always sort of was in it already, even though it was defined as PR and corporate comms and issues management and all those things. And again, although the disciplines are different, they're all part of the same family. So I was already always doing it from that side, going back to what I said, even I was raised with that creative mindset. Um, when I decided to buy the business, I was actually a client of theirs first. And I was having some existential conversations with the previous owners about the, where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And if I had been switching to become a business owner was something I knew absolutely nothing about and being aware of my own strengths, it would have been a colossal flop. So going into business on something that I already knew, and I remember even when I was talking to my lender about the purchase of the building of the business, I did not require to put a business plan together because they had seen I'd been doing this for 20 years already. So the shift was, and it was a well-established company. And so I moved, there's a lot of things that happened just before and after the sale that were not, we could have a whole conversation on acquisitions and taking over a business and the problems that come with that and the challenges that come with that. I don't want to make it sound it was like that easy. There was a lot of challenges, especially the first 6 months after I purchased the company from the previous owners. Part of it was those owners had taken the business as far as they felt they could take it, and they knew that it was time for a change for their clients as well as for their staff. And they wanted to do something. They were burnt out. And so when I bought it, they chose me to ask if I would buy it because what I was doing and who I was what the company needed. However, it's quite a bit different when you say, I know my child needs this, so I'm going to ask them to do this. And then the person does that, and you as a parent are like, what are you doing with my child? And so this business had been started and brought up and raised and grown up for 27 years. And then it was time for the transition, and I was doing things differently, not right or wrong, just different. And the previous owners were, what are you doing? This is different. So they had some of their own existential questions about what I was doing. And again, not right or wrong, just different. And so we decided to part ways after 6 months because it was an earnout. It was a 3-year earnout purchase. And we decided it was best that we just part ways, which I recommend if you're buying a business from someone, right? Otherwise you're running into trouble. And I've since spoke to many business people who have said, yep, that's not uncommon. So why marketing? Because it's something I already knew. But I'm not doing necessarily the marketing anymore. I'm running the business, and I have other people on my team who can do it. One of the reasons I chose this business and this particular company to buy is I already had been working so much with the team as a client. And I knew them very, very well. And I knew their reputation. I knew how well they work together. They have a long-standing, I'm the newest person in the company. And that's really quite unheard of in the agency world to have people working that long. I just took my longest standing employee, account director, and now a partner for lunch yesterday for around 20 years. That's amazing. The other thing I'll say is that although we are a marketing firm, we're much more than a marketing firm. We really like to call ourselves a strategy firm, and we really like to call ourselves, we do marketing, we do everything around all the different subdisciplines of marketing, but we are fundamentally brand first. And we're all essentially problem solvers and storytellers. And what differentiates us, I think, and why we've been successful is we really are about, everybody says it, but I can really see that how we are really about relationship, about partnership, about not just creating a product for something or a deliverable for our client, but really understanding them. And we just had a presentation to one of our clients yesterday where we unveiled a company name and a couple logo options and brand options and their brand narrative and their story and all of that for their consideration. And the feedback we got is what we hear time and time again. You really listen to us, and we feel like you're an extension of our team. You really captured who we are. And so if you think we're up to lunch, please tell us because we trust you completely. That's the biggest success again is knowing that my clients know that we have their back and we want what's best for them.
So how do you differentiate or see in terms of like when you approach a business, buying an established business or starting new from scratch? Because both are possible, and you bought
Yeah.
a business that was there for more than a couple of decades. Like, how do you see, and what are the challenges? What are the pros and cons, if you will?
Yeah. So you know what
It
we
comes
call
with it.
ourselves now, VJ, is we call it, well, not so much anymore, but at the beginning, internally, we would call ourselves at the beginning an established startup because it's a totally different way of doing business when I came in. And about a year and a half after owning the business, we rebranded. So we took a 27.5-year company under a certain name and changed the name and changed everything about it. I think the advantage of starting from scratch is you just make it the way you want it. You make it yours, can influence it the way you want it. You can really have your thumbprint on it. When you buy an established business, you have the challenge of taking what was good, but also what might be maybe not necessarily bad, but not unique to where you want to go with the company. And you have, especially if you're buying an established team, they might be open to new ideas, but they say they're open to new ideas. And when the new ideas start, they're like, this is different. What are you doing? So it ultimately comes down to me though, is trust. And if your people trust you. So my first year in business, I only really focused was my internal team, making sure that they knew that that I had complete trust in them, learning about them before I even really put myself out there as a new owner. We really built the team. I think the advantage of buying a well-established company is name recognition, people who know who you are, but that also comes with a disadvantage, especially people that had any kind of not so good experience with you. So as soon as you introduce yourself, you're like, oh, and that's every business, right? So we've really worked hard to leave the past behind, good and bad. We basically started from scratch. I did vision, mission, values with my team. We took the old vision, mission, values off the wall and started over. And really, my team has embraced our vision because it's a joint vision and they want to be there. I think in the past, it was someone else's vision that they were helping to carry out. And now it's a joint vision. So my vision is also their vision. Yeah. So both, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. It really depends on what kind of business you're buying and where they are in the marketplace and what their reputation is and what their strengths are, what your own ability is. So if I had to do it again, I don't know if I would start from scratch. I certainly wouldn't start from scratch in my 50s, but I said it was unique, but I'm actually finding a lot of people who are either starting new businesses or buying new businesses later in life. And I think it might be whether their own personal experiences, whether it was a death or a divorce or a bankruptcy or whatever, or whether because they just wanted to. I'm finding that I'm not actually as anomaly as I once thought. So yeah, maybe we're just all crazy.
I think so. I don't know, man. Like sometimes I wonder, like the crazy questions, like what is even the purpose of like of anything actually,
Yeah.
right? I think authentic relationships, real relationship, conversations, friendship, kindness, love. I think those things matter, definitely matters, and people matter, 100%. But sometimes I question like what is the purpose of like many of these things actually, right? That's when I something hits my head. Okay, you're getting older, dummy. Stop it. Like go back to work.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there comes a time where you do ask those questions, whether it's from something that happens in life. Like, my mom's going to be turning 90 in February. She's as sharp as a tack with it, but she's physically frail. And my father, who's never had a health issue in his life until a year ago, now has both Alzheimer's, cancer, and some other issues now. And he's maybe got a year left. He'll be 94 in January. But I look at them now and I'm like, okay, they've had really successful careers. They've done very well. But at the end of the day, not to get all morbid, but at the end of the day, they're gone soon, right? So I'm so grateful that they had successful careers. I'm so grateful that they did well so that we were taken care of, their family was taken care of. They've, sure they made mistakes too, but they made right choices. But at the end of the day, when I'm sitting in their room with them, that doesn't, and none of that matters. But it does, because I wouldn't be sitting in their room if they had not made those choices. So all
Very true.
the success they had in their own careers, in their own lives, I think they were ultimately thinking of the things that matter, but all this other stuff was great to have too. And it's not either or, it's both.
Got it. Got it. So anyone who is looking for marketing will definitely flash your website. weareaboutthat.com. I like the
Correct.
domain name that you've got. Really good domain name. Got it. It's a quick segue. We are calling it. We'll go to an AI section. You're going to request AI to create something for you, like draw something for you, and we'll have a question around it. That's something we've been doing it for the last few episodes now. And just to make it interesting, because we are a tech company, so we have to do something related to AI. This is just a fun little exercise for us. Right. So you just have to request whatever you need. Rudy, you can tell me, I'll type it for you. So you can tell what you need to be drawn, like draw me whatever comes to your mind.
So it doesn't have to be business related.
It could be anything. And I'll have a question after the image comes out.
Okay, draw me a picture of how many people I should have on my team within a year. Is that too complex, too out there? Should I narrow it down a bit?
We'll ask it.
Okay.
So we are giving the task to AI. Let's see what it comes up with. Draw me a picture of what
What my team should look
Okay.
like in a year.
okay.
Business.
Look like
I know that's even a real thing that I'm thinking of, but I did put it out for illustrative purposes.
draw me a picture of what my team should look like in a year. Fair?
For business.
For business? Okay. All right. Yeah, I changed the costume a little bit, which is, I guess, people from the office. I'll send you these pictures later.
Yeah.
You release the episode, I'll do that. Yeah, the question that comes to mind is like differently. You spoke about team, and you spoke about them in length. I think the question that comes to mind is like culture. How does culture play a role in defining the business? Because every office is different. You can have a 10-floor office with 10 different businesses, brands. Each floor is different because their culture is different. The way they approach customers is different. The way they take care of the employees is different. How would you define culture?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I just had a discussion with my team yesterday and I said, I'm a culture person first. If I know my team has the skill set, I know they could do the work. I know I could win the lottery bus or a different bus, hit by a different bus, and that they would be able to I know they can do the work. Can they fit into the corporate culture that we've created? The corporate culture. And I know when I used to be interview for positions like that I was interested in, I would always ask that question to define what corporate culture was. And then I would say, what would your staff and direct reports say is your corporate culture? I'm a huge culture person. The values that we created as a team is about that when we rebranded are again, a lot of people say this, but I'm driven by them. And I make sure that they are always front and center and ask questions about that every meeting we have. And not just a formality. I don't do it as a slide and say how we live it. I'm like, we talk about it. I've always been a person too that says if the culture is embraced and everybody is agreeing to it and living it out, corporate culture isn't something that can be manufactured. It kind of evolves over time under visionary leadership. That's by example. But like our culture, for example, before I bought the business, it was actually internally, it was a little bit toxic. Not so much from the people that work there, but there was a disconnect between the leadership and the frontline staff. And I did some work with them and realized there was two cultures. Like you said, there was the culture that they created that was very healthy, and then there was the not so healthy culture. So we did a lot of work with that when I first came on, is like, what has made this culture so positive over the last 10 years that you guys have worked together? And why has it been negative? And the first 2 months, they couldn't define it because they were nervous about telling me that, until I created an environment where authenticity, vulnerability, almost very Brené Brownish in some ways, where it's okay, right? And so we define that, and now we know when we're living it, when we're not living it. And if you're going to be spending, well, as entrepreneurs, it's much more than 8 hours, but if you're spending 6 to 8 hours at a job and you loathe every minute of it, and you're worried about whether you're going to be coming home feeling like you have been mistreated, or it just doesn't even align with who you are, going back to the existential questions, why bother?
Right.
Like, why would I be subjected to that? Everybody has worked for places that have not been healthy. So I've really worked hard. My first whole year was really just making sure that our culture was a place that was safe, a place that was fun, a place where people could ask the hard questions as long as they did it out of respect, where people could challenge me. I gave my staff complete autonomy to tell me, if I'm doing something that's a detriment to the company, you better tell me, even as a leader, right? So our corporate culture is very, very healthy and very strong. And everybody, over the last 2-3 years, we've rebuilt our culture from the ground floor since I came on board, and it's never been better. And if you're going to spend that much time at work, you don't have to necessarily be a BFFs with your people you work with, but you definitely better have a healthy, a healthy culture. And a healthy culture doesn't just mean everybody is singing Kumbaya all the time. It means it's, you have ways to deal with all the tough stuff as well as the good stuff. And we're driven by our 5 values, and we live them all every day. And they're center, whether we're dealing with a client or whether we're dealing internally, they have to happen. So I'm a big culture person. Whatever your culture is, like if you don't fit into that culture, I had a supervisor who once told me years ago that he would rather root out someone who is not part of the culture. And that might be just because it's not a right fit, or it might be because they're doing toxic things, or it might be there's time for a change, or whatever the issue is, than rewriting a policy about why we need to have culture. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, makes total sense. Good sense. We're coming close to the podcast. We have a rapid fire section, and we have a closing question, and we'll wrap in the next 2-3 minutes. So the rapid fire question section is just to get to know you a little bit, and just fun questions. It could be a short phrase or a one-word answer, however you prefer. Someone has to hang out with you. I've hung out with you a little bit. If someone has to hang out with you, are you a coffee, tea, or a beer? What drink would you prefer if someone has to hang out with you?
I'm a coffee snob. Coffee's color.
Got it.
I love coffee. And the second thing is I am a dark beer person. The darker the beer, the better. I want a beer that sneaks up and slaps me in the face.
Got it. So early bird or a night owl kind of person?
Night owl, unless I'm camping.
Right. Got it. If you were to recommend a podcast that you're always listening, what would that be?
Boy, that's a good one. Right now, I'm really into a finance podcast. So because I'm right now all about finance, I would say the Couch Potato podcast.
Got it. I'm making a note so that I can.
Yeah.
Got it.
But that's just on the finance side.
Got it. And if you were to recommend a book for anyone, you already did the Dan Martell one.
Yeah, The Speed of Trust by Stephen R. Covey.
Got it. Speed of Trust. Nice. Interesting. And what's the one word that best describes your leadership style?
Collaborative.
Interesting. And what's the one thing people are surprised to learn about you?
That surprised to learn about me is that I do not play any sports except pickleball. People ask me if I play basketball because I'm tall. I'm like, I'm all thumbs and I'm all 2 left feet.
Right. Do you play tennis at all? No.
I played racquetball, and I played racquetball back again. It was a dying sport. So I played racquetball a lot until it disappeared. And now I've reached that age where you play pickleball, if that means anything.
Got it. And if someone has to take away, what's one takeaway message it should be from this conversation? There is one message that the audience would want to take away home from our conversation. What should it be?
from Rudy?
Find out what matters most to you and eliminate your distractions for your time that get in the way of what you really want to do and who you want to be. Get other people to do the stuff you don't want to do, that are good at it, that want to do it. Free up your time so you can invest in the things that you really want to do, whether it's personal or professional.
Got it. Rudy, where can people find you? We'll definitely go on a flash. We are aboutthat.com. But where's the best place to find you? LinkedIn, Instagram? Like, what do you want to?
I'm very active on LinkedIn on my personal side, so you can follow me, but it goes with my middle initial. So just as you see on the screen, so LinkedIn, and then I'm Rudy A. Zacharias. We are aboutthat.com is where you can find my business. And if you want to email me, the best way is to write to our office manager, who does manage most of my emails back to the buy my time stuff, is hello@weareaboutthat.com. Or any networking event where I feel it's worth my time, I'll be there.
Rudy, my friend, it's an absolute pleasure to sit down with you. I learned a lot. Thanks for spending the time with me and like sharing your story, sharing your journey. Thank you so much, Rudy.
It's been my pleasure, and look forward to us sitting down and having a coffee sometime. It's been great.
Let's do it.
It's great to spend some time with you today.
You got it. You got it. Thank you.